Are you thinking of taking a spring break trip this year? Or maybe you're already eyeing up that summer vacation, but you're not quite sure if you have the proper transportation for those road trips. Hey, that's where Toyson Ford can help you. Toyson Ford has a wide selection of new and used vehicles for you to check out. And at Toyson Ford, they treat you like an honored guest. They will work with you on financing no matter what your budget may be. So if you're looking for that new vehicle this year, head to Toyson Ford, located at 1000 Chippewa Crossing Boulevard in Chippewa Falls. We are always looking to save a little money in our pockets, but we still need our essentials like our grocery items. So how do you save money while also getting what you need for your family? Hy-Vee Perks. If you shop at Hy-Vee, you're already getting a great deal on quality items throughout the store. But now you can save more money with Hy-Vee Perks on different items each week. Saving some money is easy if you shop at Hy-Vee in Eau Claire. So take advantage of these awesome deals and sales and stop on over at Hy-Vee in Eau Claire today.
Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the Man Cave Podcast, brought to you by our awesome friends from Hy-Vee and Toyson Ford. Dan Casper here with you, as always, for every episode of the podcast. We're going to talk a little Brewers. It's going to be a little bit of a shorter episode of the podcast here, but that's not always a bad thing, right? Sometimes maybe it's good. Maybe some of you actually appreciate that more. But I want to talk a little bit about Mark Attanasio, the Brewers owner. And if you kind of had to maybe assess or give him a job performance, because he's entering his 20th year already as owner of the Brewers. So if you had to grade it or give him a job performance, what would you say, how good of a job has he been doing as an owner? We're going to go through some of the comments that he made as well yesterday or the other day that he usually does to open up spring training and such. So we're going to get to that. A couple of housekeeping notes, though, first. One, I'm working on a thing. We got the draft coming up, and I know a lot of you probably getting your mock drafts going, playing with some simulators and all that fun stuff. And maybe starting to pay a little bit more attention. We got the Combine coming up next week already. So with that, I'm toying with the idea of doing a little draft with a draft. Going and hitting up some of our local watering holes and doing some mobile man cave podcasts over there. And talking about the draft while having a draft of a cold one. So if you have any nominations on where we should go, to do some episodes, more than just one. We're going to do a few of them. So, probably going to hit up Ray's Place. Probably going to hit up the Elbow Room. Famous Days. Some of those. If you have any, hit me up with some nominations. So, draft with a draft. Maybe that's the name that we'll call it. So, and some awesome news here too. We've got a swag partner. Shout out to Resonance Branding Company, the official swag partner of the Man Cave Podcast. Got a store coming up. We're going to have some swag available. More details on that, but wanted to give a shout out to our new swag partner, Resonance Branding Company. Tees, hoodies, hats. Maybe we'll get some more swag out there in the coming months or days or such. But keep an eye out for that, which is coming pretty darn soon here. So with that, let's talk a little Brewers as we inch a little bit closer to their first spring training game, which is going to be this Saturday, February 24th. Pat Murphy also talked a little bit with his team. I'm sure some of you saw the video clips. It was a short clip that the Brewers posted and that. And, maybe getting a little motivated and such with listening to Pat Murphy. I'm excited to see Pat Murphy. I mean, if you've been kind of following along over the years and maybe more so this year because you're hearing more about it. I mean, he's going to be a different personality than Craig Counsell. It seems to be a little bit more of the outgoing type of personality. We've heard over the years, kind of a jokester and all that sort of stuff. We've seen him kind of get intense on the field too. But I'm excited for that fact because all accounts, I don't think I've ever heard or read about one negative thing about Pat Murphy from players or anything like that. So I'm excited to see him get a shot and excited to see, what he can do as manager. But maybe we'll get some good sound bites coming from the manager here too. But I hope he does well because he just seems like an incredibly likable guy. Like, that's a guy that, I don't know, just from the outside, he looks like a guy that I want to play for, I want to win for, and I don't know, something about Pat Murphy that just, like, I want to play for that guy. You know what I mean? But I'm excited to see him get going, and hopefully he has some instant success right away. That's apparently the expectation when it comes to Brewers owner Mark Attanasio. Every year he addresses the team in spring training and talks a little bit with the media at hand about, you know, his expectations, his goals, and all that sort of stuff. And we'll go over some of the comments that he made, and obviously one of them is payroll and goals and the new manager and all that stuff. So, kind of go over some of the nuggets here. This is from Brewers.com. Also, we posted up the piece from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel and such. But here's some of the comments from Mark Attanasio on his relationship with Murphy. He says, it's evolved. I'm in touch with him a little bit more. He worked real hard this offseason, so I talked to him more. In fact, I flew with him to look at the Dominican Academy. I flew with him there and back, which is a pretty long flight. It's also evolved because of how he's in charge now. We used to kind of joke around a lot. Now we joke around a little less, maybe a lot less. But, you know, his determination is palpable. You can feel it. You can feel it this morning in how he spoke to the players. On spring training and the first day of workouts, said this is one of my favorite days of the year. I still like Christmas, but this is up there. One of the reasons it's important is to always try to compete is that we have real hope. We had a year as David Stearns was coming in that we knew we were bringing in the next wave of players, but we were not going to be that good. Now we're bringing in the next wave of players, and we think we're going to be good, maybe really good. That's what it's about, and it wouldn't be much fun to not competing. When he was talking about the payroll, he said there's always money in the budget to take advantage of the opportunity. There always is, and there will be this year. Pat Murphy can certainly speak for himself, but one of the things he said in the clubhouse is that he hopes we're so good that we don't need to get anybody mid-season. And let's not get distracted from what we're trying to do. And that's something Mark has said over the years. He's kind of insinuated that there is money in the budget. He's mentioned that I probably can't count on one hand. But I think the follow-up question to that would always be, or should always be, well, how much money is in the budget? You know what I mean? Like, how much money is in it? Like, you say there's money in the budget, but how much money is, in fact, in that budget? I went on and talked about his team and such, said there's a huge opportunity for guys here. We've had a significant winning tradition. We have an expectation to win this year, and we'll have a lot of young guys, a lot of young players who have their first real opportunity to shine in the major leagues. We'll see who seizes that opportunity. Also, a little bit more about the payroll and budget and kind of building a team. Said since early in his tenure, we've evolved more to trying to manage our entire budget because we have to do all these other things. We have to have a great team on the field. We want to continue to develop our infrastructure. We want to continue to the human capital in the team. There's always money in the budget to take advantage of opportunities. So, about the Corbin Burnes trade, he did address that. He said, we were looking at always being competitive. So Matt Arnold and his team have always had to balance that against looking towards the future. I think the expression Matt uses is, quote, over the line. A trade has to be over the line for us. And there was nothing, frankly, even from my perspective, that was close to that line until that trade came up when it did, talking about Corbin and going to Baltimore. frankly, we thought we were going to be going to camp with all of these guys. Again, talking about they initially thought for the longest time they would be starting the season with Corbin Burns. So, and I'm sure some of those comments probably going to be falling on deaf ears, and for some fans it's like, yep, same stuff, same thing over and over again, says the same stuff year in, year out, yada, 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 you know. But when you look at some of the numbers here, ever since Mark Attanasio has been with the team, this will be his 20th season. This will be his 20th season. In the last 8 years, they are top 3 in the National League in terms of wins. You want to go back to 2005, they're one of the 4 best in terms of wins. Now, there's also something missing in that, and that is World Series, World Appearance, Championship, and such. Right? We know that. But when we go back to 2005, in their division, they finished 3rd out of 5th. 4th out of 6 in 2006, 2nd out of 6, 2nd out of 6, 3rd out of 6, 3rd out of 6, 1st out of 6, 3rd out of 6, 2013, 4th out of 5th, 3rd out of 5th, 4th, 4th, 2nd, 1st, 2nd, 4th, 1st, 2nd, 1st. That's where they finished, division-wise. And when you look at the years prior, let's go 2004 down, last, 4th out of 6, 3rd out of 6, 5th out of 6, 5th out of 6, 3rd out of 5, 3rd out of 5, 4th, 5th, last. That's 94. 93, dead last, 7 out of 7. 92, they finished 2nd out of 7 there. Point being, when you look at numbers-wise, regular season numbers-wise, they've been fairly consistent in contention, competing for a postseason spot a lot of times. In my era, I know I may be a little younger than some out there. I'll be 38 this year. But in my era, the let's call it the Mark Attanasio era has easily been the most successful Brewers run that I was a part of physically alive. I mean, I was born in the mid-'80s there, and you can look at some of those numbers there. But there was, for a long time in my youth, elementary school and such, middle school even, it's like, who cares about the Brewers? They stink. They're not good. I mean, I remember going to my first Brewers game at the Metrodome, and it was Cal Eldred was on the mound, Marquise Grissom, Roman center field, Jeremy Burnett was there, but it's like, okay, it was cool and such. But it was like, okay, they weren't good. I'll be honest, as a kid, you knew about them. I mean, I had the hats, but it wasn't like we had these expectations of going to the postseason and having runs. It was kind of like, nah. And then it changed. Really, it kind of changed when I was in college, and that correlates to when Mark bought the team, became the owner. I was in college, and then you started to hear about them a little bit more, pay attention a little bit more. They started to win a little bit more. I mean, I know I've mentioned it before, but that 2008 run where they made it to the postseason, I mean, that was their first postseason appearance since what, 82? And I just remember following along that entire season and be like, dude, this is awesome. It was a little bit before, the year before too, when they finished 83 and 79, and then it's like, okay, expectations got a little bit higher. All right. They go out there and they win 90 games in 2008, went down to the wire. I remember watching the final game, them celebrating in the locker room and such, but it just felt like happy to be there. Finally got over the hump. But it started to really kick in more. Like, okay, Brewers are a team here in Wisconsin. They're a competitive team. They're a team maybe we should start to pay a little bit more attention to. And I started to a little bit more in college. I mean, it followed them a little bit in high school, middle school, but they stunk. They're awful. They were there. You had your highlights of Ben Sheets for a little bit, Jeff Jenkins. I mean, we can list individual players, Bill Hall. Those type of guys, they'd have like some good individual seasons, but overall team-wise, it was like, yuck. And then We started these last few years, how many years in a row? Craig Counsell comes aboard. Yes, you had the Ron Renicky era for a little bit. The 2011 team with Fielder, the 1 year run, Braun over there, Game 5, Diamondbacks. I was at that. It's still one of the best sporting events I've ever been to in person. And I remember after that walk-off by Tony Plush, Nyjer Morgan, the celebrations and such, and it was good to be a Brewers fan again. And they've been, ever since 2008, they've made the postseason every year except for that collapse in 2022. So, and I go back to 2011 when I was at that game, and I've told this before, but one of the loudest cheers after that walk-off, when the team was celebrating on the field, was when the camera panned to Mark Attanasio, and he was up on the jumbo board. That was easily one of the loudest cheers. And I always thought it was kind of, fan base saying thank you to an owner that was like, hey, thank you for, maybe investing a little bit, helping us win a postseason series, getting to the postseason, fun team, right? And then things have changed over the years. Brewers have made some postseason runs. They've been to the postseason and such, but it seems like the general perspective of this team has been maybe not so kind. And maybe it's just a loud majority. I don't know. But it seems like it hasn't been that kind or not as appreciative to Mark as maybe it was earlier on in his ownership tenure. You've got, fans wanting him to spend more money, or, he's the owner that where the team made interesting trades and decisions, Josh Hader and such. And I still go back. I believe, it's just my thought, but I believe, going back to the comments he said after that trade, where he kind of kept saying it's a question for David Stearns, I feel like Mark wasn't on board with the trade, but he allowed his baseball people to make baseball decisions. And yes, he could have vetoed it. He could have, said, no, we're not doing this. But he allowed his baseball people to do what they're supposed to do, whether you like that or not. But that's my belief. But when it's all said and done, he's still the owner, still has to stay, talk about it and stand behind that decision and such. But over the years, that it feels like the perception of Mark has changed. And I get it to an extent, because when you start to have some consistent success, going to an NLCS, going to the postseason for 5 out of the last 6 years. But, 3 of those you lose in the wild card round. You kind of change your goals and you change your expectations. It's like, awesome, great, we finally are a perennial playoff contending team. We're getting there. We keep doing, we're there, but now let's have a little bit higher goals. Let's have a little bit higher expectations. Let's, not just be happy like we were in 2008 just to get to the postseason again for the first time for some people's lifetime, mine. Now we want to change those goals and we want to change those expectations, and we want to compete for World Series championships now. And what can we do to maybe get us over that edge a little bit to get a World Series championship? And for some, it's, maybe we got to increase the payroll. Maybe we got to spend a little bit more. Maybe that's the easy answer for a lot of people. And there's nothing wrong. There's absolutely nothing wrong with having those type of expectations of championships. I think if you're a fan, you want those expectations. Maybe some years you kind of know it's not going to happen for your team. You just know it's like, this ain't going to happen this year, probably not going to happen for the next couple of years or whatever. Just it's not there. But you still want those expectations. You want to be in a position as a fan for your team to be hoping for and expecting and wanting championships. And since the Brewers, have had some sustained success of getting to the postseason and such, those goals have changed a little bit. Those expectations have changed a little bit. They've gotten a little bit higher for a fan base. They've gotten to be where like, okay, that's great that, we made postseason. It's fun. We want a little bit more now. We want a little bit more. You should. Absolutely. But I also think it's unfair, and I don't know if anybody's really doing this or has this mindset, but I also think it's unfair to at least not recognize the change that Mark has brought to the team as an owner. Being a part of this franchise now where, they've been in the last few years here a playoff contending team. There's been a lot of issues I've had with him. There's been a lot of issues, probably more from other fans, that they have with Mark. But I'm also appreciative of the fact that we're talking about a baseball team here that has been going to the playoffs quite a bit these last few years. We're not talking about a perennial loser. We're not talking about a team that we're hoping, maybe goals are, hey, let's finish third in the division this year. I'm also appreciative of the fact that he's put together a front office, he's put together a staff, and at times has spent a little bit of money to try to remain competitive, to try to be a contender. Has it all worked out? It absolutely has not all worked out. Would I maybe like to see the payroll get a little bit bigger here and there and maybe add some more high-priced talent so they're not always having to trade some guys? Of course. I mean, who wouldn't want a payroll like the Dodgers? I mean, what fan base wouldn't want their team to be able to sign a dude for $700 million and defer all that later on in his contract? Who wouldn't? I mean, come on. Let's not kid ourselves. It's not our money. We just want to play Monopoly money with other people's money. So while it has been maybe frustrating and not necessarily lived up to some of the goals we've had in the last few years, I do give Mark credit for upping the expectations and upping the goals that we've had for our favorite team, for our baseball team here in the last how many years? He's been a part of that reason why we've have these higher expectations, why we have these higher goals. But I think maybe for some fans, they would argue, we've changed those goals, we've changed those expectations. It's now the ownership has to also okay, we've set the bar up a little bit higher. We got to do our part now too. Whether that's increase in payroll, whether that's making more deals or something like that. Maybe that's where a lot of other fans are coming from. Is like, you've hit this bar. You've reached this point. We've increased our goals. We've increased our expectations. We've bought in. Now it's time for you to maybe take that next step. Take that next, or raise those goals. Because now we want championships. But he's, last few years especially has been under fire. Mark has from fan bases, from the fan base for various reasons. Is there anybody out there willing to maybe say, hey, y'all need to chill? You look at the numbers. You look at, since 2005, wins, fourth most. Last 8 years, third most. This continued success of getting into the postseason. Guys got to be happy about that. Is there anybody willing to go on that ledge? I think there is. And I think there's a few of you. So I want to hear it. All right? I want to hear it. All right, that's going to do it for this little quick of a episode of the Man Cave Podcast. Again, brought to you by our good friends from Hy-Vee and Toyson Ford. As always, I know I end it this way, but if you could take just a few seconds to give us a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple and give us a positive review on Apple, it just helps. Somehow the algorithm helps spread the word of the Man Cave podcast. A big thanks to all of you who have done that, and a big thanks for all of you always tuning in. Until next time, I'm Dan Casper, and I will talk to you on the next episode of the Man Cave Podcast.